Hello and good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to another Friday Digital Lunch organized by the European Campaign Playbook. My name is Sebastian. I will be your host today. A little bit about us. We are a volunteer-led organization that is trying to promote exchanging best practices to do networking amongst pro-European campaigners. We started as a few of us doing this type of digital lunches every Friday during the first lockdown, but as the community started to grow, we are now a little bit bigger. We are now over 300 people who regularly promote or contribute with articles, join our events with proposes guests, and really anything that you think could be interesting. If you're a pro-European campaign or communication professionals, it would be great to hear from you. We need people like you to join us. We need your help. Today, really cool event that we've been working to put together for quite a long time. It's an event on the Conference on the Future of Europe. Those of you who already follow us know that we are very vocal about the conference, and we are trying to organize ourselves to promote a positive narrative about the conference, because we believe it's going to be one of the most important political achievements in Europe, and we need to make the most out of it. However, we also need to take a critical look at it. If we want to be responsible citizens, we need to take a look at how the conference, since its launch, has fared at many different challenges, and more importantly, what we can do to keep it up, to keep taking the conference to every corner of Europe. And to help us understand, to help us take a closer look at the conference, we have two guests today. The first one who will appear on the screen is Elena. And I'm going to say the word, you are muted. I don't know if you are trying to say hi, but you're muted. Hello, Elena. Hola.
How are you?
Yeah, doing fine. So Elena, she's very well-known journalist based in Brussels, working at the moment for EUObserver. And you've been covering the conference in various articles, even the conversation. Am I right?
Yeah, we have been following the discussion quite closely since the very beginning that was presented by the European Commission, and now, checking what is going to come out from these first meetings and first plenaries.
Good. We'll go into that next, but first, let me introduce you to Andy, who is now on the screen. Hey, Andy.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Andy's joining us from north of London, and he's another data journalist, currently working at Graphext, which is a startup, data startup based in Spain, very successful. I've been following you guys from the very beginning, and kudos to Victoriano and all the team who are following us today. And you will show us later something really cool that you've put together. Can you just give us a hint so that people stay to watch what you've done?
Exactly. So we've kind of mapped the conversation surrounding the two campaigns. So we collected data from Twitter about people posting hashtag Conference of the Future of Europe, and also hashtag the future is yours. And what we're going to look at is how key players in that conversation are connected, who's driving the campaign, and where is the communication, where is the conversation kind of centralized, where's it coming from?
Yeah, exactly. I remember when we were putting together the session, you clearly asked, what are the the key questions that you want to answer before we start looking at the data. And one of the questions was that is I think it's going to be key. Is the conference through different means getting to the average citizen, or is it an exercise done by the EU bubble? No, so I think we have today two different perspectives. We have the perspective from the media with Elena, and then we will jump into what data tells us. Before we jump into it, please send us your questions by posting them as comments. If you're following us on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, you just need to drop it as a comment, and I will make sure the question gets to one of our guests. And let's start with Elena. There have been talks about this conference. I remember since Macron made his famous speech, and it's been, of course, we've been through a pandemic that no one was expecting, and that delayed things. But now we are, in the run-up. We have only 1 year to take this conference to its maximum level. What has been, as a journalist covering EU affairs, what has been your impression? How have you seen the media covering this exercise?
It has been a bit of a mix, I would say. At the beginning, in 2019, when it was presented by the Commission, it was very welcomed, widely welcomed by almost the whole Brussels bubble as a new initiative that could bring some kind of change, some kind of new debate. But of course, when the pandemic hit, not only the pandemic, but this year of the Council, where member states are represented, that were not able to get to a common position, and there was like 1 year long of discussions about who should take the lead, who should take the credit from it. It was pretty focused on that during almost a whole year, instead of on the content, instead of on the participation of the citizens. That was the focus, right, of the conference. So that was a bit the beginning. It was a bit the hype, and then the pandemic and the interinstitutional fighting. And now, now it's a bit, I see some low expectations for one side, but on the other side, like big expectations of what can happen in this year. Conclusions are expected in 2022. So it will be 1 year of exercise, and everyone is like expecting it to start. Somehow it was launched on the 9th of May, Europe's Day. But the media coverage was not really, I would say, huge, as maybe some of us were expecting. This was also a reason. This was also because there was not a clear decision about how the participation of citizens was going to feed into the conference itself until 2 days before the 9th of May. So the lack of agreement was also creating an obstacle for the launch of the conference on the 9th of May. But I would say, like, now there is also this positive side of people expecting what is going to happen from these first citizens dialogues in member states, what is going to happen from this first plenary session, where citizens, national parliamentarians, MEPs, everyone will be represented. And I think there are big expectations of what is happening, what is going to happen at the moment. But yeah, it's a bit of a wait and see at the moment.
Definitely. I mean, I'm not sure if Sebastian's connection is a little bit bad there, Elena. But
no,
okay,
like
so,
with everything.
I think you muted yourself there for a second.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. We lost you.
I can hear you. I think
we lost you absolutely.
Yeah, we lost you for a second.
I think you've muted yourself again, Sebastian. I was wondering, maybe I could say it, Elena. I think it's quite a challenge to disseminate one campaign throughout the whole of Europe. You've got many different cultures. I mean, is the expectation that this will reach maybe beyond Western Europe, beyond the Brussels bubble, into countries where people aren't perhaps as active in previous campaigns?
Yeah, sure. Well, I would say that's one of the main challenges of the conference. It's still very much seen as a top-down event, unfortunately, I would say. So at the moment, there is a lot of interest for the EU bubble, for think tank representatives, from EU officials, but I'm not sure if the interest of a random citizen in a village in the middle of Spain, Castilla-La Mancha, or in the middle of I don't know if it's reaching the conversation there, the debate, and I'm not even sure if these kind of citizens are aware of it. Well, I think you will show us later with your graph kind of that conclusion too.
Definitely. I mean, it's interesting to understand whether there's an expectation that this is a challenge from the outset, or whether people that are driving the campaign kind of expect that there will be a wide reach, or they're aware of this kind of limitation, because I guess that very much depends on how you approach kind of disseminating the message.
I think I'm now with you. You can hear me, no?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, for some reason the Wi-Fi decided to start the weekend sooner. Sorry for that. But I could follow what you were saying all the time. So I've been following the conversation. It's only you couldn't listen to me. I was going to ask Elena, because we had in the past some of the guests heavily involved in the conference, and of course everyone is aware of how difficult it is to agree things at the European scale. They will say, "I am surprised that you are surprised." And I think the idea here is there is a lot of noise. There has been a lot of noise, but I am not sure that this is something that has, if I ask my father or my local butcher, I don't think he's been hearing about, and do we have one executive board and we don't have one. I think this has been a conversation, luckily, that has remained within the capital, and I agree that it has been very much focused on who's getting the credit for it. But I am a little bit more optimistic because I've seen relatively positive coverage about the conference and what it can achieve from big European media. So I'm thinking not only the EU bubble, but I don't know, in Spain, for example, El País, El Mundo. At least what has been covered, it has been positive. Do you agree? Do you think it can? And we can talk about the UK later. But do you think that it can go in the reverse, that you see big media really criticizing the conference, or how do you say it?
Well, I'm not sure so much how has been the coverage on a national level. I'm still a journalist of the Brussels bubble, so that's what I see the most, and what I can talk about. And there you see this mix. It's true, like the coverage is kind of positive, but it's still a wait and see, because nothing really has happened yet. And on the other hand, there is a lot of people that is seeing the many challenges that are there for it to happen. I don't know, at the beginning it was presented as a 2-year exercise. Now it's 1 year. It seems that is to just comply a little bit with what Macron wants this to be. And so I don't know how has been the coverage in national media. I'm sure like all the interfighting in Brussels hasn't been there, but it has that is what has happened so far for this year, and I don't know if it will turn out to be negative, but it's true that I've read many opinion articles that call for maybe not doing it, or talking about the bad timing of the pandemic to do this exercise, or like it's not completely negative, but it's more about the challenges. Also, for example, if really the representation of citizens in this conference will be representative enough for what the majority of Europeans want. It's also a big question about it. Also, if it's really true that the institutions are able to let citizens to take the leading role, and if these citizens have enough knowledge for that leading role, so
Yeah,
it's
of course.
it's a bit of a mix.
I mean, in the for example, in the UK, I was looking at sentiment analysis from the coverage from the media in the UK, and sometimes it feels that the UK hasn't left the EU, because they are still. I mean, Europe is pretty much every day internal matters. European internal matters are still every day on the British tabloids. I am optimistic in the sense that European media, for different reasons, they won't turn into this tabloid model, and if then you look at the how Europeans get informed or get news from Europe, it mostly comes from the media. So you have a huge responsibility to, of course, report accurately about its main achievements, but also failures, if any. I would like to say like one more thing regarding the media impact, which I think it's gonna be super important going forward, and is that perhaps it is something we do back in 2019 with the European elections, is focus less on the people running the conference in the Brussels grey offices. And whenever the actual debate starts, I think it's going to be super important to be there to show what's happening. It's going to be people chosen randomly, so it's not the usual EU freaks who will show up like us, but it will be like actual, random selection of the population. And let's see. I mean, I think the media has to be present during these events and put the focus on the people, because this is, to me, this is it is a way to reach people in a way that has never been tried in the past. So even having the courage to do it digitally, of course, but also with these conferences of citizens conferences, I think it will be very interesting, and it can really be a change of the narrative. I don't know if you agree, Elena.
I completely agree, but like the fact that the pandemic has been there, for example, this first event that was the launch on the 9th of May, it could have been a very colorful reportage. But of course, there was the problem that it was not decided until the last minute, the problem of the pandemic, the problem of the traveling rules, that they are not clear for any mortal, and that has been the challenges for us, for the media, to really reach the citizens. But the still is what we have said. The events itself, the physical meetings, they still need to start. And I completely agree that it will be a great opportunity to really change the focus, the media focus, and see what really the citizens have to say, what they expect at the end. It's supposed that they should be at the center of the initiative.
Yeah. I want to take this impasse because we are doing, as part of the European campaign playbook, we have a focus group, we have a campaign coordination group of people like us who are gonna be creating events on the platform, on this digital and multilingual platform, and we'll be doing also physical events, not the citizen conferences, but the actual own initiative events. So I encourage everyone to go to our website. There is a space for Future of Europe, and you can find out how you can do that and run your own event. You don't need to be called by the European Union to do an event. You can do it just following a basic principles, and it is accessible to everyone. So it's really an opportunity. Now. The media, so big conclusions on the media. Perhaps mixed opportunity to really make a very bold start because of indecision, pandemic, so many things. I'm still optimistic about European media. Really, like I saw in the 2019 elections, that they really got behind it. And reported accurately on it. And then also for all the campaigners following us today, what it comes every time that we have a discussion is that we need to focus on the people, right? Every angle should be about the people, not about the politicians, like a little bit self-interested. And we need to take the conversation beyond the bubble. So, as a sort of like a wrap up on the media, I don't know if you want to add anything else, Elena. Any other comment before we go and check whether this is true, whether this is an EU bubble exercise, mostly thanks to Andy.
No, I think you wrap it up. let's go.
Okay, so now we're gonna move on with the work that Andy has done. Again, the brief was to try to find an answer to the question: is the conference a conversation that is happening mostly in the EU bubble? And then Andy did this brilliant work. Andy, please take it away. And then I encourage everyone who's following us to ask questions, either from the previous, let's say, section or this one. And I will make sure that Elena or Andy answer to those questions. Andy, please take it away.
Thanks, yeah, and I'd definitely like to reiterate that. I understand, obviously, when you start seeing the map for the first time is potentially a little bit confusing. So what I will do to start with is just kind of explain how we collected the data, what data we're collecting, and how we ended up with this map. And I'll try and be quick and clear about that. So we have a tool, Graphext, for creating data science projects. The idea is that you work with data sets, and you can conduct various types of analysis on our platform, and you don't have to write any code. So you can walk through a wizard, and it's going to build you a project with a graph or a network map like this. So for the brief that Sebastian gave me, which is to kind of monitor the conversations surrounding the Conference of the Future of Europe, I used Tractor, which is a tool also built by Graphext, and we can download Twitter data straight away. So all I did was collect hashtags matching either of these terms. I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm just typing in.
So it's kofoe, no? Which is this ugly word that they came up.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be better than that. But
no, I think it's worked out quite well. And I mean, it's a very, very simple query. I get all of my reply tweets, I get retweets and quotes, and then all I have to do is click search, and it's going to start scraping the data for me. So I did this a fair few times with Sebastian. We went back and forward. We built quite a few projects, monitored the conversation maybe starting about 2 months ago. And the most recent data that I collected was 2 days ago, which is what we see in the map here. So once I've got the data, I can load it straight up into Graphext, and I've got variables such as who's posting the tweet, what their description is, how many favorites they have, how many followers they have. So metrics, kind of really, really clean data from Twitter here, which I think is an important point to note, because Twitter is obviously not the only way to monitor the conversation, but it is an easy way to do it. And we get very, very clean results. So thinking about how we wanted to explore the data, I felt that a nice thing to do here would be to look at the interactions between people posting about either hashtag COFOE, I think I've spelled that correctly, or hashtag the future is yours. So we want to really focus on who's interacting with one another and where are they coming from. So I bring up, this is the wizard I was talking about earlier. I bring up my community connections project. If I just click, excuse me, so blocking my screen a little bit there. And I can edit the project configuration, and we can extract some information from the tweets. So I'm going to get the significant terms, the sentiment, hashtags. I can get a range of kind of language features, which is really just natural language processing. So we get all of this inside the project, and if I click build, then I end up with something like this after about 5 minutes. So what we're seeing here is every circle, every node in this graph is an author of a tweet, somebody who participated in the conversation. And authors are linked to one another based on common interactions. So if Andy posts a tweet and I mention Elena and Sebastian, I'm going to be linked to Elena and Sebastian. And then if Elena mentions me in a tweet that's also talking about the future is yours, then Elena is going to be linked to me. So I'll just demonstrate that really quickly. If we search for campaign, we get the European campaign playbook, which is kind of nice. I can select the neighbors of the European campaign playbook, and I see these are the users. We can actually see Sebastian is here with his lovely photo. And this is the links that the European campaign playbook have. So we've got incoming links listed in green. There's none for this account. Outgoing links, which would be connections from the European campaign book, and then obviously reciprocal links as well. So that's a really nice way, and how we end up with sort of the gravity of the graph here. So generally, if you have more connections, you're going to be pulled towards the center of the map, because I mean, let's take, for example, Ursula von der Leyen. So if I select her neighbors, there's many, many, many people that she's interacting with and people that are interacting with her. So a very quick way of understanding who has the most connections is to use size mapping. So I've already applied it here, and we can see the degree is the number of connections that a user has in the graph. So if I change it to something else, for example, last tweet date, for example, everything changes a little bit, but then the degree, so the larger the size of a circle here, the larger the size of the account, the more connections they have. So I can select those that have interacted with more than 41, and we start to get an idea. Yes, they're all kind of based around the middle. And I don't know if you guys would like to comment here, but this is kind of the accounts that you would expect to see at the center of the debate. Is it striking a bell with you? So we've got Ursula von der Leyen.
Yeah,
I mean, these will probably be more familiar faces to you, but that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is always a good thing in data analysis. Yes.
And, yeah, I think, and also, I mean, it shows. I mean, it's the way. The reason why I really love this is because you see, you know, at a glance, you see that this is so far for the month and a half that we've been doing this. This is a EU bubble exercise, and you can see it there. I mean, you explain it beautifully. But let's get I think there are more lessons to be learned. So the first, let's say, conclusion, I think, is there, and you can see it clearly. Of course, it's reduced to Twitter. Twitter doesn't represent society at large at all, but it is an indication. No? It's just trying to put together a big puzzle. No?
Exactly. So I mean, we're already starting to get a little picture of who's kind of involved at the center of the conversation. So I think it's worth kind of stepping back a second and looking at how many people we've got here. Looking at some numbers, we have just over 3,000 people in the debate. But what's really interesting, and maybe striking a few of you as slightly strange, is we've got this nice graph where people are connected in the center, and then we also have some names, and this is actually, again, these are accounts that are kind of circling around the outside. If I take down the labels, it's going to be a little bit clearer for you guys. So what's going on here? I think it's quite interesting to know, if I select just the people in the center of the graph, I get 54% of the data set. So that's just over 1,500 people, which means that around the outside of the data set, we have many people, many accounts, many Twitter accounts without any connections. So this usually would be considered noise, considered something that is not necessarily important to our analysis. But I think it is important here because it represents the fact that half of the people participating in the conversation aren't linked to the center of the campaign. So generally, I think that's quite a alarming thing, is that there's maybe no interactions between people, or maybe just make that a little bit clearer for everybody. There's no interactions between people around the outside with this center of the debate. And we can see if we select people from, I mean, this is by no means exclusively people from Brussels. The way that we get Twitter data on locations isn't very clean. However, some people are listing locations quite nicely. I'll just show you how it works. We have locations like this. So there's various variations of Brussels, various variations of Berlin, for example. So I've kind of collected them all together a little bit. And we can see if I select people with more than 4 connections, I get people at the center of the debate. And because I've got the representation set to relative here, I can see this this gray bar that represents Brussels values generally distributed in the data set is about 16% roughly of people are listing themselves as from Brussels. That's not to say that it's more, but it's probably not less. So again, if I select more than 4 connections, and I just color it again by this, I can see that Brussels is massively overrepresented again here. So people at the center of the conversation are kind of overrepresentatively from Brussels. And then we can see that again, if I select people from Brussels, we see they're generally kind of collected towards the center of the conversation here. Guys, please jump in at any point if you feel like there's something that is or isn't making sense to you here. Is that kind of what you would expect to see? Is that maybe disappointing news? I don't know if you caught my point earlier, Sebastian, about the ring that kind of circles the conversation. These are people that aren't, I mean, they are engaged in the campaigns, but they're not engaged in the driving force of the debate. Is that something that you would maybe be quite surprised to see?
Elena, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. No, well, I just have a question to understand better the these connections that we are right now talking about. external ring. When you talk about this not having a connection with the Brussels bubble, it's because they are not following each other, they are not mentioning each other, etc. Right? Just to understand good how we can see that connection.
Yeah, it's generally mentioning, replying, atting. Yeah. So there's some kind of connection there. I wouldn't say this is based on followers at all, and it's not based on.
It's more on the reply and okay. But for me, what we see, it's pretty much what I could expect from it, if I'm honest. Because as I said before, for me, in my opinion, it was still a bit top down, the exercise, and well, if the top here is Brussels, well, we can see. We can see that pretty clear here. Still, it's very interesting to see that. I'm not sure if you can make a comparison about the amount of people that could be in the center and the amount of people that is, you know, like to see what is the size of the conversation, if it's only those people who are interacting so much in our Brussels bubble representatives and those who are not. The percentage in, you know what I mean?
I do, yeah. We've got the quantiles here. So I took maybe I'm not I'm picking up on the right point, but hopefully I am. So these quantiles are the 0 represents the bottom 25% of values. More than one connection. So between 1 and 4 connections represents the kind of medium low, and then more than 0 is medium low, more than 1 is kind of medium high, and then more than 4. So generally, people in the center of the conversation, if I just switch that back, they're representing 21% of the data set. All right.
Okay.
And then people around the outside are representing 41% of the data set. So it's more. I think what's at play here is there's a few very key players right at the center of the conversation that are driving it, and then everybody. You have people, for example, we do have people that have more than 4 connections. I think maybe even the European campaign playbook would be categorized here. People that are slightly on the fringes of the Brussels bubble, but then they would still be included in this, well, in the Brussels bubble. But then as we kind of range further out, it becomes less and less until eventually we have quite a vast majority of people, or a significant minority of people that aren't necessarily interacting with this core.
But I'm not surprised because the conversation is not. I mean, I working in campaigns and understanding how these people in the center get the advice. I think one of the key conclusions, perhaps from this is we're just tweeting nice things and then we retweet each other. There is not a conversation. This is simply, there is an amplification of the message from the people in the center who are the main stakeholders. I mean, the ones who, by the way, are being paid to do this. So it's, I mean, if they wouldn't be there, it would be very worrying, indeed. But I think one of the key things, Andy, or one of my reflections is that we need to change the tone in our campaign, and I see it I see it for the political group that I work. We need to change the tone from, nice messaging that actually doesn't mean much, to actually, what do you think? To asking questions to people, to engaging in a debate. Maybe Twitter is maybe it's a bias because Twitter maybe is not the best place to do that. But I find a lot of interesting conversations from a policy point of view on Twitter. There are amazing, the best threads and about policy and politics. You find them on Twitter. You don't find them on Instagram or Facebook. So I still think there is an opportunity to get conversational. but the problem is, if you look at the tweets from the commission, from Mondelez, it's do this, and then we retweet each other, and then it just doesn't land on any different place. No, that's one.
Yeah, I completely agree, and if I had a quick look earlier as well. If I can compare Brussels, so I've got my users from Brussels, and I compare them with everything else in the data set. So this is kind of just the values for people that are posting from Brussels, and then everything. So what's the normal distribution of the data set? One of the things that really kind of strikes me here, these are the language features at the top. And what I get from Brussels is much more of the kind of official lines of the key core messages of the campaign, and they're coming from these accounts. Whereas that says to me as well that people that are maybe sincerely, authentically engaging with the campaign are not coming from the Brussels bubble as well. So there's a little bit of a disconnect possibly going on there. I did definitely find that interesting, that the key messages are coming from more from Brussels and less from other locations as well.
If I may jump in, I think this also relates a little bit with the languages itself. The conversation is going on very much in English at the moment, I would say. Or at least if probably we would look at what is being said by those that were in the center of the graph, I'm sure the majority of messages would be in English, while probably looking at the other data that is more random citizens, we will see a bigger variety of languages, and at the end, if you live in outside of very I don't know, international countries like Belgium, at the end you are speaking your own language. But this, in the case of Spain, in Spain the conversation probably is going on in Spanish about the conference for the future of Europe, and so I think that could be also an interesting thing. I'm not sure to what extent Brussels bubble is taking into account that people speak their own language at home, and that the message cannot be only in English, because then you miss a lot of people on the way.
I think that's a really, really key point, and it's something that we've experienced in all of the projects that Sebastian and I have run. We've gone to this stage of kind of trying to research keywords in other smaller European languages as well, to try and collect data on them. But for this one, I mean, it's very, very clear the vast majority of these people are talking in English. And as you said, if I select values just for Brussels and I see what the representation is, we can see, people from Brussels are overrepresented in terms of the tweets that are posted in English. And I also just wanted to make a quick comment about what you picked up on, Elena, intuitively, which is that language is segmenting the conversation. I've colored the graph now by language. So English tweets, or English people posting mostly in English, are in blue. German is in orange, Spanish in green, French in red. So you can see here that there's clusters. People aren't necessarily, the fluidity between languages isn't happening as much as we'd potentially like it to, which is perhaps to be expected, because people, as you say, are going to be communicating in their own language. But I think this is definitely something to understand, because we don't see many languages outside of Italian, French, Spanish, German, and English represented in the data at all. So if we're not going to have people at the core of the conversation communicating messages in those languages, we're probably not going to have people engaging from smaller communities in those languages either.
I just have the I'm receiving every time that we do this. I also get some comments on the side from people who maybe don't want to put it the question on social media, but they say, like, it was for this specific campaign, the future is yours, which is the hashtag. They haven't adapted it to any other languages, which is something we did with, for example, this time I'm voting. It was a huge effort because it's. And so I think it also speaks to the level of ambition, no, that sometimes they have, no, and maybe the Commission would say we have many other ways to communicate, etc. But the fact that when we were looking at the keywords, there was not a strong keyword in Spanish, for example, or in Czech or Hungarian, not promoted by the institutions themselves. So that speaks a lot to the level of the ambition. I still think that the English is, even we did a very deep search and deep research on the languages, which I think should be done. I think like pro-Europeans who are the ones engaging with this after all are communicating between themselves in English. So I do think it captures, it can capture the conversation. I don't think there is a conversation in Italian going on that is radically different.
I think you're right. And I think with hashtags in particular, they're perhaps it's a different thing. It's an entity in and of itself. I think I'll just briefly show you something I found out about comparing the two hashtags. I compared the COFOE hashtag with the future of yours and found something fairly interesting. And maybe I can show you quicker here. So bring up the COFOE hashtag and compare it with the future of yours. And what I'm getting here is graphs that show me the difference. So if I zoom in on this one in particular, which is the number of connections, remember I had the quantiles. So this is people with more than 4 connections. This is people with more than 1, more than 0, and 0 again. And sorry, I should say that the orange represents the future of yours. I guess the point that I'm trying to make here is that the future of yours is more popularly engaged with people with less connections. So this ring around the outside of the data set, the people that aren't necessarily part of the Brussels bubble, were engaging more with the future of yours hashtag, which is in English. Whereas with the COFOE hashtag, that's more frequently engaged with by people who have more than 4 connections. So people that are really at the center of the debate. Maybe I can just clarify that by going back to the graph. And if apologies, my screen sometimes is a little bit slow here. I think you get my point. Really, is that the hashtags, they are engaged with by different audiences. So the if I do COFOE, then I can see, yeah, there's a lot more representation in Brussels for this hashtag. More people kind of at the center of the debate. And then again, the future is yours. I have less of a representation from Brussels and more of a representation around the outside. I don't know, maybe that's slightly surprising to me, because I would have thought potentially we would see a fairly even distribution between different communities here because they're so closely connected, but it doesn't seem to be the case necessarily.
Can it be because I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. The future is yours is somehow more general, more it's not so specific, not so related, maybe itself with the conference on the future of Europe as the other one that is more the acronym or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe it's used also in other contexts. I don't know.
Yes, it could well be. Generally, that I mean, if future is yours, we can check that out to see if they go to see, have a look at the text, I mean, it is generally still a conversation about Europe.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
but specifically maybe about the conference.
About the conference.
The question that I'm putting at the end of it. Just I think it's also nicer, no, because it's less complicated. The EUObserver, it's like sometimes like, what is this? Yeah, I don't know. It's more general. I think it's more friendly.
Definitely. I think COFOE seems to be very concentrated to this. Well, I mean, I don't want to keep using the term Brussels bubble, but I think it is relevant, and I think it does seem to be something that it sounds a little bit more official, you know.
Yeah. More young.
And I am pretty sure that you can find more hashtags. I've seen many, but I think the COFOE is I don't know how. Maybe DG Meme has already mocked it. I am not sure, but yeah, I think we have to also get better at the acronyms. Good. Anything, Andy, you want to add? I've got a couple of questions, but I'll let you finish the presentation if you need.
No. I'm ready for any questions you guys have. Let's rattle through them.
Okay, great. So in terms of, so I'm always thinking very not positively. It's not positively, but I'm always trying to see. Okay, this is where we are. It's what the data is telling us. If we need, so what is the profile of the people who, like you said, and maybe I think I understood it correctly, that there are some people who are not the usual EU bubble staff that are engaging, but they are not really. I mean, we are failing to engage them, right, in a more meaningful way. Is that, and those are the ones around the bubble. No, who are they? I mean, what type of commonality do they have in common?
Yeah. I mean, there is a certain limitation of what we can understand with Twitter data, especially when we collect data exclusively around like a particular campaign, because what we're going to collect a lot of tweets which generally are talking about the same thing. So it's quite difficult to kind of understand. We don't get a person's age, we don't get a person's quite rightly, we don't get their marital status, you know, that kind of thing. However, what we can do is this ring around the outside is quite easy to just select the people with 0 connections, and we can get their locations. So, I mean, we have a little bit of an overrepresentation from London, from the UK here. We have a slight, in fact, perhaps that's not relevant. We've got the authors' names, so we can see, we can go through, and if we wanted to, we could have a look, maybe a sample of these, and look at them again on Twitter to understand a little bit more. I think perhaps I don't have, unfortunately, I don't have the bio inside this project. So if we wanted to run the projects again, it would be possible to possibly get extract some features from the Twitter bios of people, and then we could we understand what are they saying about themselves in the bio. So I don't actually have that in this project, Sebastian. Apologies for that, but it would be possible to do that
for the next session.
Yes,
I want to be able to run this. I would like to be able to run this like every 3 months and see if the situation is changing. But I see a lot of potential. What I'm saying is, like, there are people out there who might want to get involved, but we're just not giving them the platform. It's a simple I mean, it's as simple as that. In so many other debates, the conversation is open and is less scripted, and that encourages people to participate in very meaningful ways. It's not only haters and trolls, etc. I've seen really cool discussions around foreign affairs, about constitution, especially niche policy topics. So, and I don't think they are participating at all. They find it boring, and we need to change that. Elena, anything?
Yeah.
You got? Where is the so for example, let's look at the media. Let's try to find the big media, because I can see for example, let's find EUObserver. Let's see where it is, and I'm adding a surprise element.
So, I can search.
I was disappointed. I put it on the.
Sorry, Sebastian, I couldn't quite make out what you
because I thought that.
Sorry, Sebastian, could you repeat that?
Your connection comes and goes.
I think it's just nipped out there.
Yeah, Wi-Fi problems.
Indeed. Now, I think you're back, Sebastian. I just missed that last bit that you were saying there. I wonder, Elena, is there any accounts that particularly, any media accounts that you would be quite interested in looking at specifically? I don't know who I'd be searching for, so you need to help me out a little bit.
Yeah, so Sebastian, I think he was talking about the possibility to search about EUObserver.
EUObserver, of course.
Yeah, but I know
I'm back.
the has
so this
been
account, yeah.
Okay,
so if I
we don't use too much the hashtags, and we don't reply to, it's as a media we don't reply to other people, but of course we mention people in the. So I think these are more mentions, but not itself a reply or.
No,
something.
This is people that I've mentioned you. I mean, it's exactly echoing as you've said. These are incoming links. So the only outgoing link that the EUObserver has is to this lady. Yes, which is quite interesting. I mean, it is very interesting to kind of now, if you're an interested party, if you are participating in the debate, you can then go onto the graph. You can select yourself and find out, how well are we engaging with the community around us.
If you click, for example, in Alberto Alemano, which is the guy, over there.
Yeah.
So we interviewed him. He's actually been asking for the link, which we will share, I am sure. No, after the. So he seems like very well connected, no?
He has been advocating a lot for making the event very participative and for the role of citizens. I mean, I have also interviewed him a couple of times for this. He has been very vocal about this exercise. Outside politicians, I mean.
Yeah.
I think generally, though, we can see. I mean, if we check who this person is engaging with, we can again see that the interactions coming in and going out are generally sort of going back into the bubble, though.
Yeah. And I'm looking for more best practices, like people who are not necessarily from the bubble. It's from the bubble, but it's maybe has more. Is engaging with people outside of it. I don't know if it's easy to find. I'm looking for best practices, people who are trying to doing it right.
Yes. I mean, what we'd be looking for there really is selecting people with many connections. So people that are influencers, people that are influential in the conversation. So it's people with more than maybe 20 connections. And then we'd be looking on the fringes, because this isn't a fail-safe method, but generally your connections will pull you one way or the other on the graph. So if we were looking for people on the fringes here, this generally means that the Council of European Municipalities and Regions is probably going to have some connections that are heading outside. So if I select their neighbors, clear this filter, we can see, yeah, there's people that are, in fact,
so they're doing something right. So let's I'll check them out. No, I think this is super interesting. No, to see.
It's true. I mean, these are incoming links. So I think these are people mentioning this account. So I think we should take that with a pinch of salt. But generally, that's the approach. I think it would be a case of going through around the fringes of this bubble. And then what we'd really be looking for are the outgoing links. So people that are kind of passing on outgoing links. I mean, for those who missed what I was talking about earlier, that would be the Council of European Municipalities and Regions mentioning another account, whereas the incoming links are somebody mentioning their account, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, I think I will spend some time playing with this super interesting tool. Everyone who is also interested in taking a look, please do reach out. We will put it on, or we'll make it available. So congratulations on the work. Let's continue the chat. Let's see how this continues evolving, and if we see, if we take the same picture in 3 months, if it is still the same. I think that would be very interesting to see. Elena, I know you are extremely busy in in the week before the plenary, and I really wanted to thank you for your time, for your perspective, and as someone who knows the bubble inside out, I think the contributions were spot on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting me. It was very interesting. No problem. It was very interesting to see this kind of project. I've been doing something similar some years ago for my master thesis, so it's very nice to again look at the debate on Twitter. It's true that Twitter is not representative of the whole society, but I think the conversation on Twitter represents a big deal of it, and I don't know, it can help understand better how things are going. And in this case, well, there is still some work to do to drive the conversation outside the bubble.
Yeah, and with that note, I think we can wrap it up. Again, thank you, Andy. We'll be in touch for sure. I have a lot of questions, especially from Twitch, because we are also open the account there, as everyone has done it. But I think what we will do definitely a second session, and I will put you in contact with Andy, and hopefully we can continue the conversation offline with a beer at some point. So, thank you very much.
That would be great. And I think I'd just say as well, on a finishing note, that we'll put the project, so you can explore it for yourself, in the descriptions for our videos. So generally, it's kind of nice if you wanted to explore it for yourself, answer some of your questions. So that will be there.
Yeah, definitely. We will do. Thank you. Have a great weekend. And let's. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye. Have a great weekend.
Bye.